Let's turn now to Shannon Martinez. Used to be a white supremacist and is now a fellow for the Polarization and Extremism Research Innovation Lab at American University. She's also program manager of the Free Radical Project, a nonprofit that helps people disengage from extremism. Your perspective is one we do not hear often, and I thank you for spending a few minutes with me. I want you to listen here to a former classmate of the man charged with the Buffalo shooting and hear how she describes her interactions with him.
He gave me a weird feeling in my stomach for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, he was nice, but he was just really shy.
Did you sense that he might have been racist, or did you sense that he was just maybe odd, strange, or creepy?
Odd, mostly weird sometimes. I mean, I don't like to judge people, but that's the impression I got of him.
Was it his manner of speaking or the things that he said that gave you that impression?
He didn't make eye contact with me when I talked. He, looked around.
So, Shannon, the day after a mass shooting, all the pieces fit into the right place, right? Hindsight being 2020, but maybe he just was shy, or maybe he's a racist and future mass shooter. What are we supposed to look for? What are parents specifically supposed to prioritize in their kids when they see some characteristics?
Sure. Looking at things like, I mean, and he may have also, that if your child is not making eye contact, they may be on, the autistic spectrum or have some other sensory issue or whatever. Like, please do not take not making eye contact as a warning sign. But things like that, they have an intense desire to want to know why things are the way that they are are a rule challenger, but not just that they don't want to listen to the rules, but that they want to know why the rules are what they are, that they talk about craving significance, that they feel like they were put on this earth to do big things. If they're feeling alienated and alone, if they express deep fear about the future, about their personal future, or about the future of the world, a sense of hopelessness about the future of the world. If they start talking about the legitimate use of violence to solve problems, and whether that's just in their personal life, in their school life, or in the world at large. If they express feeling unseen and unheard, if they express feelings of feeling unlovable, or that they have all of this love to give and nobody wants it. And if they are disconnected from their greater community, one of the things that we know is helpful to help people, even who have multiple layers of trauma, are things like making sure that they're, protectively, making sure that they have at least a couple adults outside of your family that they have, positive connected relationships with, being involved in community service. Making sure that they, as a parent, that there's somebody in your home, you or your spouse are standing up for that child, that you are that they know that you will fight for them and keep them safe. They have friends and feel supported by friends.
One of the details, of course, we know from this 180-page statement was that he was bored. He was alone. It was during the pandemic, and this is when he was radicalized online. I guess that's where he found community. But there were the red flags in June of 2021, where he wrote this statement about murder-suicide. There was a response from state police. There was a medical evaluation. If you're a parent and you say, well, the police have investigated, there's been a medical evaluation, they say there's nothing wrong here, should they have demanded more? I mean, should parents go beyond what is required now?
I'm not gonna speak on what the family did or didn't do, and I think we should also take caution using the shooter's own words as necessarily being something that we use as trustworthy at this point.
That's fair.
But I think one of the places where things fall down is that predominantly with mental health care workers and psychosocial support. People in the communities, that they're not specifically looking for and asking about someone radicalizing into hate, violence, and dehumanization. That we're not asking specific questions about, racist beliefs or about, what their view of the future is and whether or not they feel like the use of violence is legitimate, for the purpose of trying to discover if they are in fact, about to commit a terror.
Yeah. Well, Shannon Martinez, I thank you. I know that has certainly been helpful for parents, even if they don't have a child who, as this classmate said, doesn't make eye contact or spends a lot of time alone, what to look out for. And maybe that raises a flag that prevents the next one of these shootings. Thank you so much.
Thank you.